Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Looking at a story from the LA Times talking about the connection between global warming and crime. LA Times predicting that because of global warming, between now and 2099, there will be 22,000 more murders than otherwise would have happened and 180,000 more rapes than would have happened if the globe was not warming catastrophically. LA Times, we got to start hiring new police because global warming is going to drive people to murder and to rape. 22,000 more murders over the next rest of the century, 180,000 rapes. So I guess we can all thank God that there has been no global warming since 1996. Means all these murders and rapes that the LA Times is fretting about apparently will not happen. Out there in the California-Nevada desert, they got a big, huge conflict right now between environmentalists. They got these huge solar farms. Remember, these are the ones that are frying the birds. They generate so much heat that are targeted toward these towers that are 459 feet up in the air that they are frying birds. Birds fly through there. They get incinerated. Now, the other problem is they are built on the habitat of the desert tortoise. So we don't know who's going to win that showdown. Well, let's grab a phone call. Let's go to Rebecca, Rogers, Arkansas. Number is 888-589-8840. Rebecca, Rogers, Arkansas. Welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Just want to say we do not claim Lisa Murkowski as a senator from Arkansas. I know you goofed up. She's
Did
from
I say?
Pryor is bad enough.
All right,
And
my
we're
bad.
for Tom Cotton to win, but
And Tom Cotton, I saw a poll today that he's up 4 points now on
yes.
Mark Pryor. So just want to correct that.
Yes.
Lisa Murkowski is a senator from Alaska, and Rebecca
Right.
is from Arkansas. Apparently, I misidentified the state. Rebecca wants to be
Yes.
very sure that we know that Arkansas did not send Lisa Murkowski to the United States Senate.
Yeah. Hey, and back to Thomas Sowell's article. I had read that yesterday, too, and it just made me ill. And now Cruise Control Part 2 is his article in Town Hall today.
Yeah.
And he goes so far as to say jeopardizing the reelection of current Republican senators, like McConnell, is an act of utter irresponsibility, a high risk with zero benefits to anyone except Ted Cruz and the Democrats. Just sick. But that sounds just like what I encountered Tuesday with the Benton County Republican Women luncheon meeting. So they say we're supposed to follow President Reagan's 11th commandment. Don't speak ill of fellow Republicans.
Well, you know, and the question I've got then, Rebecca, here's the question I've got. All right, if it's the 11th commandment, then how about Ann Coulter calling Ted Cruz a con man, a scamster, and a shyster? I mean, why doesn't anybody call her?
Chris Christie too.
Yeah, why doesn't anybody call her or call them Chris Christie for violating Reagan's 11th commandment? The only people that ever get called on it are people like us who tell the truth about undocumented Democrats in the Republican Party.
That is exactly right. Did you hear on One News Now report? They quote a lot Professor Charles W. Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
He was comparing Ted Cruz, a freshman senator, to Barack Obama, a previous freshman senator who had no political experience. Now, they keep saying Cruz doesn't have political experience, but he was a solicitor general in Texas who's argued before the Supreme Court and kept their liberties in Texas. I think that is the best experience.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're at the point, you want somebody that's articulate. Ted Cruz is clearly that. Somebody that can persuade people. He clearly can do that. Somebody that's got a sound conservative philosophy. Clearly he's that. The capacity to win elections. He's clearly got that. He came from out of nowhere to win that election for the Senate in the state of Texas. I still would like a Republican governor who's governed as a conservative, like a Rick Perry. I would still like that as a preferable choice. But if those guys can't gain traction, I think we can do a whole lot worse than Ted Cruz. All right, Rebecca, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for that. Let's go to Mike in Chesterfield, Virginia. Mike, welcome. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call, Brian.
Yes, sir.
First, just a comment on your last caller. She said that political experience was needed. As Herman Cain would say, well, we've had plenty of political experience. How's that worked for you so far?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to agree with President Obama on one thing. The science is irrefutable, but as your buddy Frank Turek would say, science doesn't say anything. Politicians and scientists say it. Science is not self-explanatory. It has to be evaluated. It has to be interpreted, and they are interpreting it wrong. It's the interpretation we have a problem with, Mr. President, not the science.
Oh, listen, I appreciate that call, Mike. And, I really honestly believe that it's liberals that are anti-science. We believe in science. When we talk about the issue of origins, we talk about the first law of thermodynamics. We talk about the second law of thermodynamics. We talk about what genetics teaches us. We talk about what the fossil record teaches us. It's rooted in objective science. When we talk about the climate, it's rooted in objective science. There has been no discernible global warming for 17 years. We know that global temperatures are driven by solar cycles. That's science. And that's what we're seeing. Because of solar minimums, we very likely could be headed into a prolonged period of global cooling. So who are the people that are using science, counting upon science? Well, it's conservatives that are doing it. It's liberals that simply disregard any, quote, scientific information, end quote, doesn't agree with their preconceived notions. All right, Mike, listen, thank you for the call. We got this issue over in Ukraine, and I know very little about the issues in Ukraine, and I don't even care to know. I know it has something to do with who wants to go into the EU and whether Ukraine is going to remain attached to Russia or going to go into the European Union. You got protesters in the street. You have a truce that collapsed. People are getting shot. People are getting killed. It's obviously a very, very horrible situation. Here's my point. We have no moral right to get involved in Ukraine. That is their business. It's an internal matter. It's something that they are going to have to sort out. We have no ethical right to cross their border and intervene in their internal affairs. That's not our business. We don't want people coming over here and poking into our business without being invited, and we should not force ourselves into the Ukraine. But here is President Obama, clip number 7, drawing another one of these meaningless red lines in the sand.
But we hold the Ukrainian government primarily responsible for making sure that it is dealing with peaceful protesters in an appropriate way, that the Ukrainian people are able to assemble and speak freely about their interests without fear of repression. And I want to be very clear that as we work through these next several days in Ukraine, that we are going to be watching very carefully, and we expect the Ukrainian government to show restraint, to not resort to violence in dealing with peaceful protesters. We've said that we also expect peaceful protesters to remain peaceful, and we'll be monitoring very carefully the situation, recognizing that along with our European partners and the international community, there will be consequences if people step over the line.
What consequences? What is he talking about? What does he mean by consequences? The only thing I can think of is he's saying, look, if you guys don't straighten up, I'm going to use stronger adverbs the next time I talk about this. Here's Jake Tapper, clip 8, asking exactly the same question. What consequences is he talking about?
And we pointed this out in our show today, the use of the term the line. And in fact, I asked Haas, if you're Yanukovych and you're sitting there and you hear President Obama talking about lines, how resonant is that? How much does the red line of Bashar al-Assad, the threat that if Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, that would be crossing a red line for the president. How much does that mean? He said it was a fair question. Obviously, you don't know. The other thing that was interesting was that Haas said that he thought U.S. options, there were far fewer options in Ukraine than in Syria. And one of the reasons I imagine would be because of Putin and his alliance with Yanukovych. And, you don't want this to be it already is a proxy conflict. You don't want it to be a proxy war. So the options are quite limited, Haas said. But I agree. I was surprised by the use of the term line. And also I thought was interesting what consequences are there? What will they be? Secretary of State John Kerry today raised the specter of sanctions, as did the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine last night. But it's not clear exactly what the full toolkit, as Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes referred to today, what's in that toolkit? What can the U.S. do?
You know, and Ron Paul, clip number 9, I agree with Ron Paul on this one. I'm generally sympathetic to his view on foreign policy, not all the way. Got some clear and marked differences. But here's what Ron Paul said about us and Ukraine. I agree with him.
Because the American people are very leery about getting involved in another squabble in some other country. No, I think it's a good plan. I think the leadership on both sides talking this over is the best thing that they can do for the Ukrainian people. But I would be willing to wager that most of the people in the Ukraine would like to see the United States stay out, and they'd like to see the Russians stay out.
So I think Ron Paul is right. I think the American people are leery, and rightly so, of getting involved in another squabble in some other country. And again, this has to do with foreign policy. I part company from what are called neoconservatives who want us to have a very active presence militarily all around the world. I don't think we should. I think the purpose of our military is to protect the interest of the American people and the security of the American people. And we should only put our young men in uniform in harm's way, at risk, if there is a fundamental issue of American security or liberty that's involved. Here's a blessing for the rest of your day. May the Lord make you increase and abound in love to one another and to all, just as we do to you, so that he may establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all his saints. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.